was day 4 yesterday with regards to the Human Rights Commission Alexandra Inquiry, and it ends today, but not before it hears testimony from Auditor General Kimi Makwetu. The inquiry convened by the Human Rights Commission and the Office of the Public Protector is probing the socio-economic conditions in Alex. It is also looking at how these impact the fundamental rights of communities.
Project. 160 million rand in 2001 by President Mbeki, announced from that very podium where you are.
The deputy president against the wall and relentlessly pressed on the alleged millions stolen from Alex Renewal Project.
But the truth of the matter, Deputy President, is that money has all been siphoned off. Money spent for housing, sanitation, community development has all been stolen. Would you, Deputy President, announce to us what steps your government is taking to look into what happened to that funding, where those funds were siphoned off for?
We are going to work with Mayor Mashaba. We are going to work with Premier Makura to deal with the problem. We, in the process, will find out what happened, because before dealing with the problem, we're going to get the history of that project.
And a concession to irate residents.
We can promise the people of Alexandra that as government, we are going to coordinate our efforts regardless of our party affiliation.
There are challenges.
Meanwhile, day 4 of the inquiry did not pull punches either.
Has the department ever played any role in this project?
Chair, to the best of my knowledge, the department has never played any role.
But the lack of delivery of social services remains a concern. There are no social development offices in Alex. The Auditor General is expected to shed light on the controversial multi-billion rand Alex Renewal Project on Friday. Maageketla Mohlabe, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Right, interesting day ahead at the inquiry. Let's recap about yesterday's testimony and where we're going forward. Today is very important. Maageketla Mohlabe joins us now live in studio. So the Auditor General is in the hot seat today, and I guess he's going to try and elaborate and give us a clearer picture about these. Well, we heard from several contradictions with regards to this Alex Renewal Project as well, isn't it?
Of course. Throughout the week when this inquiry started, we had different contradictions in terms of how much money was allocated to that project. Just during the week, we heard from MEC Lebohang Maile saying that in as much as people are saying there was 1.3 billion rand allocated to the Alex Renewal Project, that was not necessarily true. He says that that was just part of the business plan back then during the launch by former President Thabo Mbeki. He went on to say that, but years later, of course, over 1.3 billion rand was spent. You'd recall we did a story looking into this particular project just a couple of months ago, and we spoke to some of the officials that are still working in the office of Alex Renewal Project. What they told us is that about over 2 billion rands was spent in this project, and that was back in 2015, and that was the report back in 2015. Of course, they also went on to tell us that about 10,000 houses were built, not of course only in Alexandra, they were also built in nearby areas like Diepsloot as well as Diepsloot as well as Bramley. So on the other side, we also had MEC Lebohang Maile saying that 14,000 houses were built. So obviously some contradictions coming through, but of course it was just day before yesterday when we had Deputy Minister for COGTA, Obed Babela, saying that that money was really not enough. 1.3 billion rand was not enough.
Was he saying
that
this
problem?
We need what, about 16 billion rand and over the next 10 to 20 years to fix the problem?
Over the next 10 to 20 yes, but in the meantime, obviously, those leakages in terms of your sanitation, for example, or needs to be blocked. The municipality needs to do their job to actually try and facilitate services in there. But of course, I have to mention that this issue of Alex renewal project continues to play out throughout this inquiry. I mean, yesterday, as you saw in that package, we had from the HOD for Gauteng Social Development saying that there are no offices in Alexandra. And of course, this actually triggered pressing questions from Human Rights Commission as well as the Public Protector's Office to say, I mean, there was that money that was allocated to the Alex renewal project. You would have expected actually to hear the social development saying that there are offices. But let's just have a listen to what Buan Jones had to say about this.
You don't have an office in Alexandra. So one would have thought that as government was conceptualizing this Alex renewal project, they would have, I mean, the MC came here, claimed that they've built schools in Alexandra. There are roads in Alexandra. If this was a multifaceted project, there should have been at least an office, a dedicated office for social services. Would you agree?
Let me start by saying that the department acknowledges the fact that the unavailability of office at Alex is a challenge to people of Alex, because one should get access to services within the area where they are. And as you have highlighted the fact that due to their socio-economic status, they may not necessarily be in a position to come to Johannesburg to access the service. But earlier on when I presented, I indicated the fact that the department, in realization of the fact that people in Alex do have challenges, we partnered with the NPOs that we are funding. Among other things is to ensure that those services are there.
So, Maageketla, obviously the inquiry pulling no punches, as you mentioned in your piece. And when she says challenges, I guess that's an understatement, isn't it? When you don't have a social development office in the area. How much of on the back foot, I mean, are these residents for not having such an office there?
Of course, I mean, the inquiry continued to actually press on with these questions in terms of you've got huge numbers of people that are unemployed in Alexandra. And of course, I mean, in the previous months, we saw how Alexandra experiences these fires, shack fires, as well as some floods, of course, affecting some of the shacks there. And of course, really, you'd expect many of these residents to receive some sort of counseling, for example. And it is the work of the social development that it's supposed to be actually rendering those services, and which is why the inquiry continued to ask the question, in as much as there was a lot of money allocated for the Alexandra renewal project, you would have expected offices nearby or even in Alexandra to be able to I mean, for people of Alexandra to have access to them. But what the HOD continue to say is that, well, they are doing their best to actually send their social workers on a daily basis in Alexandra. And of course, there are buildings that have been identified to actually address this problem. So they are still waiting for some sort of a letter to be approved. And they will announce to the Commission in due time to say when exactly will the people of Alexandra Alexandra have their own offices there.
You know, you reported as well that this is a hot topic in Parliament as well. We heard, just take us back to what was said there and the response from the Deputy President as well.
I mean, obviously, the question from John Steenhuisen, that's the DA Chief Whip, was where's the money? Where's the millions of the money that was allocated to the Alex Renewal Project? Of course, this on the back of that protest that we saw in recent months when people were actually protesting over the issue of service delivery. Of course, even housing was at the center of that particular protest. But obviously, Deputy President David Mabuza making a concession there to say that the government will definitely work with the municipality. They will also work with Mayor Herman Mashaba. Obviously involving all three spheres of government, obviously that's national, provincial, as well as the municipality, to address these issues. As you would know, there's that interministerial task team that's actually looking into these issues. And of course, I remember David Mabuza as well saying that people of Alexandra shouldn't actually be worried. They will definitely address these issues because really these are the issues that need urgent attention.
So the inquiry wraps up today. Today is the last day for the inquiry. We're likely to get a report afterwards. Do we know when we're going to likely get this report, and how efficacious would this report be in trying to solve the so pressing issues on the ground?
Well, at the moment, we don't know when exactly we're going to get this particular report. But obviously, what we are expecting today is to hear how far that particular work of Auditor General is, because you'd recall that during the protest, Premier David Makura did mention that there's going to be an audit into this Alex Renewal Project in terms of how much money was spent, how it was spent, on what project it was really spent. Of course, throughout this inquiry, we heard of how some of the bulk infrastructures were actually, there was some sort of intervention into some of the bulk infrastructure, your sanitation, bridges, housing, schooling as well. So we are actually going to get some clear picture in terms of how much was spent, perhaps so far. But you would recall, Blaine, that just a couple of weeks ago, during the third sitting of this inquiry, we heard from Shadrach Sibia, that's the head of forensic investigation in the city of Johannesburg. Obviously, he actually requested the media to clear the room because you'd recall that the municipality as well launched their own investigation into this Alex Renewal Project. But during his presentation, he requested the inquiry to actually ask the media to leave the room because he said that there was sensitive information, there were names of people in there, and of course he didn't want to implicate anyone at that stage. So it remains to really be seen what the report will be coming out when this particular inquiry releases it. And of course they said that it would be somewhere around September when they make their findings and recommendations known to the public.
I know we've got to wrap up, but I just want to get your sense because you've been covering this story so closely. You spoke about getting a clearer picture today from the Auditor General, but our residents, from what you've heard, are residents getting a clearer picture of the weeks of testimony that we've had?
Well, they do, but of course you'd be aware that patience is running thin. They're still angry at the fact that it's been over 2 decades with this issue of service delivery. And of course, they're still telling me that people are still being evicted. And we saw that happen day before yesterday. And of course, they are saying that there's still a pile up of rubbish in the streets of Alexandra. There's minimal intervention in terms of service delivery. And of course, you'd recall we went to some of the old graveyard there. We saw how graves were sinking in raw sewage. It's just one of the issues that they're still experiencing. And of course, this actually puts pressure on the inquiry as well to really come up with solutions and more especially recommendations to the officials to both these three spheres of government, the national government as well as the provincial, including the municipality as well, to really come to the party and address these issues.
I'm sure that residents in Alexandra are hoping for a plausible solution to put pay to some of the issues that they're going through and get them out of a state of penury, as many of them are in. Thank you very much indeed. Always appreciate your report, Maageketla Mohlabe there.